God knows you are tired, and He is not asking you to push through it. He is asking you to stop. That is what this video is about. Not more strategies, not more discipline. Permission. Biblical, neurological, undeniable permission to stop surviving and start living. Now let me show you why that permission is not just spiritual encouragement, but the most urgent thing your body, your mind, and your soul need to hear right now. I want you to do something. Just for a moment. Look at the calendar. We are 7 months into the year. Let that sink in. 7 months. And if you are completely honest with yourself, not the version of honest you perform for other people, but the quiet, private, 3 a.m. honest, nothing has seemingly changed. You are still tired. Still waiting for the break that never quite arrives. Still getting through weeks that blur into each other until somehow it is July and you cannot account for where January went. And the hardest part, the part nobody talks about, is that you have been trying, you have been praying, you have been believing, you have been holding on, and you are still exhausted. This video is for you. Not the put-together version of you, the tired one. The one who opened YouTube tonight looking for something, anything, that might finally make sense of why the life you keep praying for still feels so far away. God knows you are tired, and He sent you here tonight. Do you remember January? There was something in the air then. A freshness. A sense that this year, this one, would be different. You prayed differently. You planned differently. You believed differently. Maybe you wrote things down. Goals. Scriptures you were going to stand on. Areas of your life you were finally going to surrender completely. And then February arrived. And then March. And somehow the freshness of January got absorbed into the same demands, the same pressures, the same battles you thought you had left behind in December. And here is the question that has been sitting underneath all of it. Quietly, persistently, uncomfortably, what is wrong with me? Why can I not seem to break out of this? Why does it feel like I am running and never actually getting anywhere? I want to answer that question today. Not with empty comfort, with truth. Here is what is actually happening. This is not laziness. This is not a lack of faith. This is not God withholding something from you because you have not yet reached some invisible standard of worthiness. This is survival mode, and survival mode is not a character flaw. It is not a spiritual failure. It is a physiological state, a biological trap that your nervous system fell into somewhere along the way and has not been able to climb out of. And until you understand what it actually is, what it does to your body, your mind, your perception of time, and your ability to hear God, you will keep trying to pray your way out of something that also requires you to understand how God made you. So let us go there. Your body is a masterpiece. I want to start there, because what I am about to describe is not a malfunction. It is actually a brilliantly designed system, doing exactly what it was built to do, in the wrong context. God designed the human nervous system with a stress response so sophisticated, so precise, so perfectly calibrated, that it can flood your entire body with the exact hormones needed to outrun a predator in under 3 seconds. Cortisol surges, adrenaline fires, heart rate climbs, blood flows away from digestion and toward your muscles. Your vision narrows to focus only on the threat. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for long-term thinking, creativity, connection, and hearing God, goes offline. Because in a genuine emergency, you do not need to think creatively. You need to survive. That system was designed to run for approximately 20 minutes at a time. A genuine threat, a real emergency, a crisis that passes. It was never built to handle a 7-month low-grade panic attack over emails and bills and uncertainty in modern life. But that is exactly what is happening in millions of people right now. The system that was designed for 20 minutes has been running for 7 months. Some of you, for years, and your body does not know the difference between a charging lion and an overdue invoice. To your nervous system, a threat is a threat. Now here is the part that I think will explain something you have felt but never had language for. Have you ever looked back on a stressful season of your life and realized you can barely remember it? Not because nothing happened, but because the memories are thin, flat, like you were there but not quite present. That is not a spiritual problem. That is neuroscience. When the brain is in survival mode, locked in threat response, cortisol constantly elevated, it stops forming rich, detailed, contextual memories. Because memory consolidation is a luxury function, and survival mode shuts down luxury functions to redirect all available energy to the immediate threat. This is why 7 months feel like a single exhausting week. You were not sleeping through your life. You were not being lazy or unfaithful. Your nervous system was buffering, allocating every resource to getting through today and leaving nothing for actually inhabiting it. You were not living. You were loading. And the cruelest part of this, the part that keeps the trap locked, is that survival mode makes you feel like you cannot afford to stop. Like the moment you rest, the moment you exhale, something will go wrong. So you keep running, and the months keep blurring. And January keeps becoming July without you ever quite understanding how. This is the trap. And it is time to name it for what it is. There is one more biological reality worth understanding before we go deeper. Chronic cortisol, the kind produced by months of sustained survival mode, does something insidious. It begins to feel normal. Your nervous system recalibrates its baseline to the elevated stress state. So when a moment of genuine peace arrives, a quiet morning, a moment of stillness, an answered prayer, instead of feeling restful, it feels wrong. It feels like the calm before the storm, and your body, trained now to expect threat, begins scanning for what is about to go wrong. This is why some of you cannot enjoy good things when they happen. This is why rest feels uncomfortable. This is why even on a good day, something in you is braced. Your nervous system has been so thoroughly convinced that survival is the only mode available, that peace itself has started to feel suspicious. Now here is where the spiritual reality meets the biological one. 1 Kings 19. Elijah has just called down fire from heaven. He has outrun a chariot. He has done what looked humanly impossible. And immediately after, he collapses under a tree and asks God to let him die. It is enough. That is what he says. I have had enough, Lord. This is not a man without faith. This is a man whose nervous system has finally hit its ceiling, who ran so hard for so long that the biological debt came due all at once. And what does God do? He does not rebuke him. He does not preach at him. He does not tell him to pray harder or fast longer or just trust more. He sends an angel with food and water. And the most profound instruction in the entire passage: arise and eat. The journey is too great for you. God acknowledged the depletion. He met the biological need first. And then, only then, when the body had rested and eaten twice, did the spiritual journey continue. God is not waiting for you to push through the exhaustion. He is waiting for you to stop and let Him meet you in it. I want to name something directly, because I think it is keeping a lot of faithful people trapped. There is a version of Christian culture that has confused busyness with fruitfulness, exhaustion with sacrifice, and survival mode with spiritual discipline. Serve more, give more, pray harder, push through. The harvest is plentiful. You do not have time to rest, and all of that sounds holy. Until you look at Jesus. Jesus, who had more to accomplish in 3 years than any human being in history, slept in the boat during the storm, not because He did not care, not because He lacked urgency, but because He understood something the disciples were still learning. Rest is not the absence of faith. Rest is the evidence of it. The person who cannot stop is not more faithful than the person who rests. They are more afraid, because stopping requires trusting that God can handle things while you are not managing them. And that surrender is the hardest thing survival mode will ever ask you to do. You cannot willpower your way out of survival mode. I want to say that again, because I know how many of you have been trying. You cannot decide your way out. You cannot discipline your way out. You cannot serve your way out, or pray a formula, or find the right combination of spiritual practices that finally tips the scale, because the nervous system does not respond to willpower. It responds to safety signals. It responds to evidence that the emergency is over. And that evidence, that rescue, has to come from somewhere outside the trap itself. You need an intervention. You need a voice that speaks into the storm and means it. You need John 8:36. John chapter 8, verse 36. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. Free indeed. Not just spiritually free while physically drowning. Not just guaranteed a future in heaven while living in a biological loop of fear and exhaustion on earth. Not just forgiven in eternity while trapped in survival mode in July. Free indeed. The word indeed in the original Greek is ontos, meaning truly, really, actually, in reality. Not theoretically free, not positionally free in some abstract spiritual accounting. Actually free in your body, in your nervous system, in the way you experience time, in the way you inhabit your own life. Christ's freedom was never intended to be a spiritual category, disconnected from your physical and emotional reality. It was always meant to reach all the way down into the cortisol, into the exhaustion, into the blur of 7 months that felt like one long, desperate week. The Son sets you free from the systemic trap of chronic fear, from the modern survival loop, from the lie that you have to keep running just to stay in place. So what does that freedom actually look like? Not as a theology, as a life. It looks like a nervous system that has received enough safety signals to begin coming out of threat mode. It looks like time slowing down because your brain is forming memories again. Rich, detailed, present memories. Instead of buffering through each day in a blur of cortisol, it looks like being able to hear the still small voice again, because the roar of the survival alarm has finally begun to quiet. It looks like rest that actually feels like rest, not like a guilty pause before the next obligation. And it looks like the second half of this year, feeling different from the first, not because your circumstances have all resolved, but because you have stopped running and started living. That is the freedom Christ purchased. All of it, for all of you. So here is what stepping out of the trap actually looks like. 3 things, starting today. First, mourn the 7 months honestly. Do not skip this step. Sit with God and name what was lost, the plans that did not happen, the rest you never got, the moments you were present for in body, but absent for in spirit. Grieve it, give it to God, and then release it. You cannot reclaim January, but you do not need to. God redeems time. He is the God who restores the years. Second, give your nervous system one signal today that the emergency is over, not a lifestyle overhaul. One signal. 10 minutes of complete stillness with no agenda. A walk outside with no destination, a meal eaten slowly with no screen. One moment where your body receives the message, you are safe. The threat has passed. You can come out now. Third, speak it out loud to your nervous system, to your schedule, to the survival loop that has been running. Speak back. The sun has set me free. The emergency is over. I do not have to keep running. I am allowed to live. Your mouth interrupts your brain. That declaration, spoken out loud, repeated, believed incrementally, is the beginning of the rewiring. 7 months. Maybe they felt like a single long exhale that never quite finished. Maybe you are sitting here tonight, wondering how it got to July, without the breakthrough you believed for in January. I want you to hear something. And I want you to hear it not as comfort, but as truth. God was not absent in those 7 months. He was present in every blurred, exhausted, cortisol-flooded day of them. He saw every moment you held on, when everything in you wanted to let go. He counted every prayer that felt like it hit the ceiling. He was there in the 3 a.m. silences and the Monday mornings that felt identical to the last. He knows you are tired. And he is not asking you to push through the exhaustion. He is asking you to stop, to eat, to rest, to let the angel meet you the way he met Elijah, not with a sermon, but with bread. The system is trying to keep you in the blur. It wants you to stay in survival mode, because a person in survival mode is a person too exhausted to build, too depleted to dream, too overwhelmed to become who God created them to be. But the sun has declared you free, not when things calm down, not when the situation resolves, not when you have finally earned the rest. Now, today, in July, in the blur, in the exhaustion, it is time to tell your nervous system, your schedule, and your soul, the emergency is over. God knows you are tired, and he says, it is time to rest. Before you close this, I want you to do one thing. Think about the one area of your life where survival mode has cost you the most this year. The relationship you were too depleted to invest in. The dream you were too exhausted to pursue. The version of yourself you kept promising you would become when things finally settled down. Drop it in the comments. Just one word if that is all you have, because naming it is the first step out of the blur, and you should not be naming it alone. And if this found you at the right moment, share it with someone who is 7 months into a year that was supposed to be different. They need to know the emergency is over too. Subscribe. Come back tomorrow. We are building something here, and you are part of it.